We gotta watch more Ben Shapiro. It's that time of day.
Okay, so what does the Equality Act actually do? So Ryan Anderson, who has been basically book burned by Amazon, they took down his book When Harry Became Sally, even though it is a well-written, concise, and yes, tolerant book about transgenderism. He says over and over and over that people who suffer from gender dysphoria should be treated with the greatest of care, which is absolutely true. It is a semblance of how idiotic our society has become that we now say that a man with a mental disorder, namely gender dysphoria, is a woman. Okay, that is not how that works.
So let's stop this right here and have a conversation real quick. So he's conflating a lot of different things because he knows he's being disingenuous and going against a specific type of audience. So first off, to be trans, you do not need to have gender dysphoria. That is not a specific requirement. Some people do, some people don't. Some people feel in the incorrect, there we go, that's better, body and mentality, or being assigned to a specific gender. Gender is not your sex, even though there is more than one sex. Biology has identified even more than 3. That's a whole other situation that is a bit of a diving deeper topic. However, there is, it's not everyone just dealing with a mental disorder, but there are the sexes, male and female, but gender is how you are received, spoken to, talked about, where you can do and where you can go and function within society. This is why it is a construct and why we identify it as one. What he also is very much leaving out is that trans people have a much higher likelihood of living a more comfortable, better life and less likely of actually dying through suicide if they get transgender reaffirmation surgeries and operations. Okay? So it is ultimately better to treat these people as the gender that they assigned to themselves or are and present as than doing the latter or doing none. It is the best treatment that we have. So yes, Ben, it's what we should be doing.
That works. And yes, it is a mental disorder. According to the DSM-4,
gender dysphoria is a mental disorder, not being transgender, which is not the same thing. And there's an essentialist conflation that he's making right here.
Dysphoria is a mental disorder according to the DSM-5, by the way. It used to be called gender identity disorder, Then they renamed it gender dysphoria because they added a requirement in the DSM-5, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual 5, that it's not just that you identify as a member of the opposite sex, it's that it causes you depression, which is the dumbest standard.
Except that we're not talking about people that feel that they are part of the opposite sex, rather that they present as a different gender, which is, again, made by the things that we buy, how we make things, dresses, clothes, paint, even, different things like that. So he's conflating a lot of things to make a really fucked up and incorrect point.
Or diagnosing a mental illness ever, a mental disorder ever. By that standard, if you walk around saying that you are Jesus Christ today, you are not suffering from any sort of...
Saying that I am a different person that existed or has at one point existed is not the same thing as talking about a socially constructed gender. So, again, a lot of straw man and false equivalencies.
Of mental disorder,
Not
unless
very
it also
smart,
causes
Ben.
you distress to say that. Okay, that's a ridiculous standard. It doesn't hold by virtually any other definition of a mental disorder, but that is what the pseudoscientists over at the American Psychological Association have to say about all of this.
Which is really interesting to hear from a person that did not make it even into acting and studied the arts from Harvard, that he will then call all of them pseudoscientists. But, go off, Ben.
In any case, what exactly does the Equality Act do? So Ryan Anderson writes about this. The act updates the law Congress passed primarily to combat racism, the Civil Rights Act of 1964, and adds sexual orientation and gender identity as protected classes akin to race. So if you have any reservations about gender ideology, as
Based.
even many progressives do, you'd now be the legal equivalent of Bull Connor, right? To say that men and women exist and that they are separate, and that a man who believes he is a woman is not actually a woman, and that a man who enters a women's locker room with all the male appendages and says he is a woman should not be allowed to do so. This makes you like a 1960s gym.
It's pretty stupid that we have these gender-assigned bathrooms in the first place. Why not do it more familial style? Locker rooms, you know, you can talk about, but the same thing. Most.
Why are we still here? Just to suffer every night.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, there's a big part of this though that like it's most trans people are afraid of their own lives, mind you, that because they get hurt and physically assaulted when a very almost negligible amount of trans people are not going in to harm your children, take your children, or do anything like that. Okay. That's not the case. It would actually more than likely happen by someone's father of taking their daughter into a locker room or something like that. Like, this is not really an issue.
Jim Crow era
Just
racist.
something that gets people
Now,
worked
to
up and
suggest
freaked out
that the
about.
differences between black people and white people are anywhere akin to the differences between men and women is patently crazy. The differences between black people and white people do not matter. They're essentially skin deep. That is the whole point. The difference between men
True.
and women is a lot more than skin deep. It affects nearly every area of intersectional
There is a truth to this, but again, we're not talking about sex. So,
relationships. It affects how men and women develop physically. It affects how men and women develop mentally. There are significant differences in mental development between men and women. Women have advantages in some areas, men have advantages in some areas, but there are major differences. This is all well-established science. There is not a single thing I am saying right now that is conjecture. What is...
well, there are definitely physical things that are. Hello. Okay. Well, there's definitely physical things inside the body, whatnot, that definitely have an impact there. We're still all share the same DNA and chromosomes. That's why hormone treatment can very much, and why we can go through, help people through transition. And in the future, it's probably going to be even more so. So,
This conjecture is the suggestion that sex is completely malleable. What the left has done here is they play a game. Here's how the game works. They accept, supposedly, that sex is non-malleable. Then they say gender is different from sex. So what is gender? Gender is a collection of stereotypes about femininity and masculinity. Okay.
True, Ben. Thank you. Yeah, no, it's really frustrating. And it just freaks people out. And he's going to bring up pretty much the argument that I was making earlier. And yeah, you can go and what he'll probably is going to say is something along the lines of, well, you know, basically essentializing it down. It's like, well, but you're still talking about changing their sex, right? Okay, yeah. But is there a problem with that? Is there an issue? Because they want to be treated how they feel through these constructs. And what's it going to do to them? Like, it's not going to do anything wrong for anybody around there. There's except benefit the people that are getting the treatment. And we know that. We know it benefits these people, and it's not hurt anybody else. There's been some fringe cases in sports. A lot of these things are still being figured out. And the sports thing comes up a lot when in majority cases, at least outside of very physical sports like MMA, it's usually generally not an issue and does not actually give people any extra advantages or anything as such.
Okay, but now that they're stereotypes, you're saying that they're arbitrary, right? Because they're stereotypes. They're not connected to any sort of underlying biological reality. And yet you say that gender is so important and so real that those stereotypes actually make you a man or a woman. So now sex doesn't matter. right? So sex, which is the only thing that we can objectively tell, that doesn't matter because gender identity, which a second ago was a set of stereotypes that were supposedly foisted upon you by an intolerant society, those are the only things that matter. So if a man cross-dresses and dresses up as a woman, then this makes him transgender interested, perhaps, right? Maybe he's actually a girl, but it depends on his self-definition. If he's a man who just likes wearing a dress, then for sure he's just a man. But if he's a man who likes wearing a dress and also thinks he's a woman, then he is a transgender person. If none of this makes any scientific sense to you, that's because it has nothing to do with science. It is, in fact, an ideology. It is not, in fact, scientifically rooted.
That show that it is psychologically rooted and in sociology and biology. So, there's that, but whatever, Ben.
It is based entirely on the fallacy that that biological sex and gender characteristics are completely different, and yet gender characteristics matter more than biological sex. And then what you will see is the final move, which is, well, actually, we're going to go back to that whole thing about sexual dichotomy. It doesn't exist. So you'll see this from the left a lot. Well, you see, there are people who have XX chromosomes or XY chromosomes and who manifest as a member of the other sex because of a developmental disorder. Yes, it's called a developmental disorder. If I say that human beings walk upright, that is a true statement. Now, are there certain human beings who are born with a disability and cannot walk upright? Yes. Does that mean that as a class of human beings do not walk upright? No. It means that some people have disorders. Okay, that does not mean that you redefine that exact term. Okay, what people on the left like to do is take edge cases, right? They like to take genetic anomalies and then treat those as though this creates entire new classes of human beings. This is incorrect. It is not right. It's all ridiculous, but this has become the new normal. So now they're trying to enshrine this into law, and this has some pretty dire ramifications for your freedoms. Everything from freedom of association, to freedom of religion, to freedom of the press, to freedom of speech. All of it is going to be ground down under the boot heel of an authoritarian left that decides that basic truth should be verboten. Okay, it is a basic truth that men and women exist on the basis of biological characteristics that are objectively verifiable. That is a simple reality.
Yeah, true. There's also more sexes than men and women, though, and we know this. More then there's intersex, and then going on, there's actually more. And new science is showing this as well. It really are breaking down these things that really matter are important because there's not really that much holding us back, other than certain genetics, which can be changed and manipulated, Ben. Yeah, he's look at this. Look at Ben, calm down. Little grumpy face over here. Oh, little cutie. Oh, so grumpy.
If you died today, there will be people 100 years from now who will be able to look at your DNA and they will be able to tell whether you're a man or a woman, and your subjective self-identification will matter not one whit, because all you will be at that point is bones. You will be able to know whether you are in fact a man or a woman simply by looking at your bone structure. We do this right now in archaeology.
Oh, sorry.
We can tell what sex your baby is before they are born.
Oh no. Sorry, guys. Try to look one thing up.
According to the left, by the way, you can't tell somebody's actual gender until they die. And even then you can't use their biology because your gender could switch any minute. There are people who are 45 years old who have been a man all their life and have sired 7 children. And if they decide they're a woman, not only are they a woman, they were always a woman. Because not only does transgender ideology violate the boundaries of biology, it violates the boundaries of physics. It's incredible. It's a time machine. You have to erase every vestige of the idea that this person was ever a man. Right? It's not just that Bruce Jenner changed his name and became Caitlyn Jenner and had some surgeries. That is not what happened. Bruce Jenner was always Caitlyn Jenner. Bruce Jenner was always a woman, you see, while winning medals at the Olympics, which makes him the most accomplished female athlete ever, by the way. Right? So it turns out that biological men are even the best female athletes. It's incredible. But now this is going to be written into law, and you are going to be cudgeled with it, and your children will be cudgeled with it.
Oh,
Let's not pretend that this is anything but what it is. It's an authoritarian move by the left to cudgel everyone into line. It's an exercise
of authoritarian, just respecting people's identity and how they want to be called and how they want to be treated. There's really not much here that's really imposing on you Ben or whoever the fuck he's trying to talk to here. There's really not. The biggest other thing that comes up is sports, but even minimally, not much is actually shown to affect people there. So this idea is, again, what's being authority? The fact that you can't just reject these people outside of your business? Move on, Ben.
Absolute raw power. That is the attempt right here. I hope you enjoyed that clip from
It's not the attempt, Ben. It's the attempt for some people to actually be able to feel like people, to be treated like people. He's calling this authoritarian, but what are they doing to you that's making, other than you just pampering, bringing up some culture war bullshit, like what is it doing to you? It's nothing at all. So he's really just trying to make people feel like their world is being challenged, that they are being challenged, that everything we know is trying to be destroyed. What, for this villain that he's trying to create, what is the left trying to do? They're not taking away your freedoms. No one's trying to do that. They just want freedoms for other people to feel like they can exist. Is that really that hard? Okay? Like, I don't know what to do about that. Like, this is, by the way, this face. Oof. I think that'll be the thumbnail. No, it's just ridiculous. And it means nothing. He's just trying to bump up culture war bullshit. A lot of feels before reels.